Welcome to our workshop. This is our makeshift shop that we've been using for the past few years while we renovate our fixer-upper. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Just to get you up to speed, we've been renovating our 1906 fixer-upper for these past few years, working one project at a time to make it our dream home here in Los Angeles. Before this house, we were living in a tiny home with a really small backyard and nowhere to store my tools. I was doing all my woodworking and building in the backyard, which meant I had to tear all my tools down and store it away in plastic sheds when I was done. It was a bit of a time waste, but we made it work, and it was early on in my building/woodworking journey, so I didn't have nearly as many tools as I do now. With each project, we've been accumulating more and more tools, but the way we look at it, we've saved tens of thousands of dollars by doing the work ourselves, so it made sense to invest in good tools to help make the work easier, more efficient, and also safer. The garage was built in the 1940s and then added on to very badly over the decades. When we bought the house, it was actually a makeshift apartment with a wall running down the middle of the building, separating a small kitchen in the corner and a bathroom over here. The other side was a bedroom and a little makeshift office. It doesn't look like much, but this little shop has actually been a huge blessing. I've never had a designated place to work before, and I actually built most of the kitchen cabinetry here, as well as a bunch of the furniture that's inside our house, including our coffee table ottoman. But it is a giant eyesore that's visible both from inside the house and from our newly redone backyard, so it's time for a makeover. Functionally, one of the main issues is the gaping holes in the building. It makes it nearly impossible to keep cool, and it allows a bunch of bugs inside the building. Plus, there's a lot of rot and potentially some mold, so ideally the whole thing is going to be stripped down to the studs and rebuilt. The other main issue is the ceiling height. It's currently barely 7 feet tall, so with ducts and cords hanging from above, it makes it really hard to work and maneuver large boards in here. So we're gonna attempt to raise the roof of this structure by adding height to the walls and also rebuilding the entire roof system so it has a bit of a steeper pitch. We won't be adjusting the actual footprint of the building, so we won't be gaining any square footage, but we are hoping to vault the ceiling, which should add some extra space overhead. While we were originally planning to keep the walls and reframe only as needed, after we demoed the inside, we discovered some pretty severe termite damage as well as a lot of incorrect and unsupported framing. So we decided to change course and tear down 3 of the 4 walls and basically start over. Not being able to save much was at first disappointing, but actually rebuilding from scratch proved much easier than trying to fix the decaying wood that was already there. It also afforded us the chance to build it right, making sure it's strong and secure from the inside out. If you're at all interested in learning how to frame a wall, I'll leave a link to our shed build video that we made last year that takes an in-depth look at how we framed and installed the walls to our shed. Here we're using the same process on the shop. In order to maximize our interior ceiling height, we're going to be doing a vaulted ceiling, which required a hefty ridge beam to support the load of the roof without ceiling joists. With the walls and roof framed up, we were ready to start sheathing. For this project we use zip system sheathing. It's the same stuff we used on the shed, and it makes for a really quick and easy install. Sheathing provides shearing strength to the walls and seals it off from the elements. The zip system sheets have a water-resistive coating that also means there's no need for house wrap once the seams are taped and any holes are properly sealed. Since we're going to have exposed rafter tails and no soffit, we added along the eaves of our roof a tongue and groove redwood detail, which you'll be able to see from below. For the rest of the roof, we covered it with a thicker zip sheet. Now I know we weren't planning on changing the actual footprint of the building, but we did decide later on to add a bump out to house a small closet that we could use to store our dust collector and other air filtration gear. We were lucky enough to already have the extra concrete pad to build on behind the building, so it was easy enough to add 3 walls and a small lean-to roof. This should afford us more space inside the shop if we're able to keep some equipment housed in this bump-out closet. Before we could start siding, we added mounting blocks for light fixtures and openings as well as all the trim details. We went ahead and sprayed the trim color on all the rafters and trim before siding so that masking would be easier when it came time to paint the building itself. For siding, we went with fiber cement boards. On the shed we used an engineered wood product by LP SmartSide that we really liked, but we unfortunately couldn't find a smooth version of that siding in the size we needed, so we had to change plans for this build. These boards were not nearly as easy to work with as the LP SmartSide. Because they're fiber cement, we needed a special saw blade to cut them. And cutting them is a way bigger pain because of the crazy amount of dust it kicks up. If you are using fiber cement boards on your project, please wear a respirator. The dust particles this stuff creates are extremely dangerous to breathe in, so the added layer of robust PPE needed to work with this stuff is another point against it. But being fiber cement, it should hold up well to moisture outside while still looking like traditional wood siding. At least that's what they promise. And it allowed us to achieve a look that more closely matches what the siding on our main house looks like. With the rest of the exterior complete, all that was left was the roof. Luckily, Erin learned how to build a roof when we did our shed last year, and we had loads of leftover shingles from when we had the main house redone, so it didn't cost us much to do the shop. With the roof all buttoned up, the first phase of our workshop remodel is complete. Next up, we're going to be working on the inside, setting up our dust collector and air filtration, and eventually moving our tools back in. So if you've made it this far, be sure to subscribe so you can see how this all turns out when we're done.